Good morning and welcome to 365 Days of Amazing Stories with Theo Mayer. Here we are on day 201, and I'm continuing stories from 1001 Arabian Nights, specifically the story of the two Viziers. Now, you might remember that Ajib had experienced a really sad situation with his tutor. Ajib had been bullying the other children, and the tutor came up with a plan to get him to stop by bringing attention to the fact that he did not know who his father was. And in the eyes of society was thought to be a bastard. And the tutor had come up with a game the kids could play that required that each one needed to name his mother and his father before they could join the game. And of course, Ajib could not name his father. He thought it was Shams al-Din, the Vizier. He was corrected that that was his grandfather. So this really devastated him, and the tutor even made it worse by pointing out how strange it was that he did not know who his father was. And Ajib went home sobbing. He was a young boy still, 12 years old, and sobbing. And he gets home and his mother tries to console him, asks him what is wrong, and he tells him what's happened with the tutor and how the boys have teased and made fun of him for not knowing who his father was. And well, Sit al-Khran, of course, started sobbing as well. She longed to see her husband again. And she recited or made up these verses as she was sobbing. How everything had changed when he had left, and she longed to be in that love again, and how his embrace had changed her world, and that his absence had made her lose hope and had not filled her with the love of life that she had felt when they were married and had spent that night together. The closeness, the joy of the closeness. Well, while she's sobbing and Ajib is sobbing, Shams al-Din comes in and asks, "Daughter, what is it?" And she tells him, and he begins sobbing as well. And the three of them just share in this grief of what has happened to Badr al-Din. Where is he? Where is this beautiful man that should be there with them as family? Well, Shams al-Din decided at that point in time that he would do something about all this. And he went to the king of Egypt and he explained the situation, and he asked the king for letters of passage throughout the land of Egypt so that he would go in search of Badr al-Din in hopes of finding him. And so preparations were made, men were gathered together, camels, mules, horses, everything for an extended trip was put together. And Shams al-Din, his daughter, and his grandson set forth to look for Badr al-Din. Could they find him? Well, they traveled for many days until they arrived at the city of Damascus. And they set up camp outside the city in a place called the Plain of Pebbles. Here they erected their tents, and Shams al-Din said, "We will stop here and we'll spend some time looking for Badr al-Din. This is a good place, so set up the camp, set up the tents, and make sure that everything is secure. And so within hours, it looked like a small village outside of Damascus had been set up just like that. Tents with carpets inside and soft cushions to lounge upon. A kitchen, of course, had been set up, and all the amenities that you would expect at home were provided for here. It was surprising that even years and years ago, when people traveled, they wished to travel in style with all the comforts that they would normally have experienced at home. After camp had been set up that next day, Ajib and one slave went into the town to look around. The slave had been instructed to watch after Ajib in every and any way necessary. Now they entered the city, and Ajib, being the incredibly handsome, beautiful man that he was, young man, brought attention to him. People saw him and praised God for having created such a beautiful man. And he made his way through the streets with this slave at his side, making sure no harm would come to him. And as fate would have it, they happened to stop at a portion of the city and in front of the cook shop where Badr al-Din was cooking. Now, it just so happened in the years past, our reformed cook master, who had taken Badr al-Din in and adopted him for his son, he had passed away. And he'd left everything, of course, to Badr al-Din. And so Badr al-Din had taken over the cook shop and made his living preparing beautiful dishes for people. He was standing outside of his cook shop when Ajib and the slave came by. And when Ajib and Badr al-Din looked at each other, as nature would have it, their hearts began throbbing for each other. They had this wonderful, warm feeling inside. They did not know what was going on, but both felt affection for each other in a way that seemed very unusual. And Ajib turned to the slave and said, Let us go in here. I have an affection for this cook, and let's get something here to eat. And the slave said, Are you kidding me? What are you talking about? Here I am with this wooden staff in my hand to protect you from people just looking at you. And here you want to go into this ratty old cook shop and get something to eat? I cannot allow that. Well, Badr al-Din walked up to the two and said, My friends, would you please come in and allow me to serve you a beautiful dish of roasted pomegranate seeds? And the slave turned to Badr al-Din and said, No, we shall not be coming in there. This is no fit place for my charge. Well, Badr al-Din then praised the slave and said, how can only one slave be sent to watch over so illustrious a young boy as this? Certainly then you must have great prowess to be entrusted with this young man, to be put in his care in such a way. You must be a man like none other. It would indeed honor me if you would come in and allow me to serve you both. Well, the slave was quite taken by these words of praise that Badr al-Din had showered upon him. And so they agreed, or the slave agreed. Ajib was already wanting to go sit down. They sat down at a small little table in the cook shop, and Badr al-Din brought them the most beautiful dish of roasted pomegranate seeds and honey and nuts. And we'll leave the three of them there in the cook shop and find out tomorrow what happens next. Thanks for joining. Hope you have a good rest of your day.